How's it going? Well, just folding napkins. Would you like to take a seat? You ever done napkins before? Oh, well, it's pretty easy. I could show you. I mean, it's pretty important. It's kind of a monotonous task to say the least, but every guest sits down, the first thing they touch is their napkin. So, guest sits down, unfold their napkin, there's a spot on it, it's crooked, looks like glop. Sometimes I like to say, might as well be blood on it. That's not my napkins. Or yours, I'm sure. At least in the future. So, quickly show you. First things first, you want to make sure the seam is up. Seam is facing the sky. The reason for that is you want to fold that in. The guest never sees those dirty little edges called the seam. Here we fold the napkin in I want to say about a third of the way, but it's negligible because, as you will find, every napkin has a different size. It's a square in general, but you'll start to notice that they're all different, just like a snowflake, just like you and just like me. So you notice that I'm using the creases, being very firm. In order to establish a really nice, clean looking napkin, you want to make sure those seams are nice and sharp. So you notice I'm kind of tucking the napkin corners in. The reason for that is I want to avoid what we like to call the overhang of horror. That's the overhang that can exist in a napkin, potentially like that, potentially like that, but it's folded right. Napkin, oh, a little adjustment there. There we go. And voila, a napkin. Now, in order to make the napkins consistent, I like to use a guide. The first napkin I fold is ideally the nicest one, and from there I go try to be even nicer, but I use the width of the napkin as my guide for the next napkin. So when I fold the edge into just about even, usually I slide my pad over and I, again, make that seam really sharp. Same thing, and I want to basically eyeball it to make sure that it's square. You'll notice, I mean, the napkin overhangs a little bit shallow here and a little bit deeper here, but from my perspective, it looks pretty straight, especially with my guide. Now, the trick is, as you're about to fold it over, make your first bend, you want to use what I like to call the pinch and roll technique. So you flip it, you pinch it, and you roll it. Just a little bit of extra fabric underneath there so you can avoid that overhang of horror, as we like to call it, and make that nice crisp press. Again, fold it over just about to touching and use that flip, pinch it, roll it. Now pinch the outside corners and flip it over. You want a slight overhang. You never want it perfectly even. You never want it like a bad envelope. You want it just a little bit so you can establish the bottom of the napkin. And again, turn it over, inspect it, check. See, and now you're gonna start to notice as my pile gets, I got about an 1/8 of an inch difference. That, in my opinion, is negligible as long as the napkin looks clean and crisp, because the guests aren't going to measure their napkin widths. They're gonna notice how nicely they're folded and open them up and set them on their lap, ideally. Notice I'm getting a little bit quicker at my methods here, but keeping the same standards. I like to line the spine of the napkin up evenly, and then I line the left edge evenly, because as you'll see later when we stack them in the shelves, it's very easy to maintain a nice crisp stack of napkins. So pinching, rolling, folding, pressing, repeating, pinching, flipping, rolling, pressing, repeating, stacking, spine out, even on one side. You notice there's about a range of less than 1/4 of an inch. I mean, We want to be perfection. We would strive for perfection here, but what is less than 1/4 of an inch? Now, if it's even more than that, then that's a different story altogether. However, we'll discuss the parameters of the most narrow and most wide of napkins. We're going to use a chopstick to measure how wide and how narrow the napkin should be, because in the end that's really what determines the correct size. Is if a chopstick can sit on a napkin, not hang over the edge, and not be drowned in the white sea of all that is linen. So I'm just about done with 6 napkins here now. I'm going to take a break and make sure, kind of press down, even out. Start to see I can really start to establish a nice firm pile. Again, the seam is always up, otherwise you might as well be blood on it, and you know, never want that. Pinching, rolling, flipping, pressing, repeating. You can kind of loft the napkin and bam, pinch, roll, flip, press, repeat, inspect. This is what we do. These are the things that settle it, make it nice, that establish what's different between our place and the next store. It's always a little fun to make the nicest stack. Maybe humbly walk across. Now, I'm gonna finish up my pile here. Quickly finish my last napkin. I got about 10. I'm gonna go finish my other side work very quickly before we go, and that's a wrap.